So today I'm just going to be briefly talking about web soil survey, and then like I said, we'll be having Margaret Minzner with OKI. She's the environmental senior planner there. So I'm going to kick us off with talking about an intro to web soil survey. So a little background information. Web soil survey uses data that has been collected by the National Cooperative Soil Survey. As I had mentioned, a map indicating soil types for the entire site area is a required SWIP component. So this map will indicate to the inspector or reviewer which portions might be highly erodible or contaminated, and thus might require some more attention. So additionally, this information can help identify the quality of stormwater to be discharged from the site. So for instance, if the soils are highly erodible, then generally your total suspended solids or TSS concentration will be higher. So as we'll see in just a moment, web soil survey can provide us with other specific properties, including hydrologic group, erosion factors, water table elevation, hydric status, texture, and various other chemical and physical features. This data can then be used in your hydrologic calculations. So your engineering calculations to determine those pre and post runoff values or flow values. So that map can be generated by having a user-defined area of interest, or you can just simply upload a zip shapefile so that it will automatically import the area that you are interested in looking at. So there's other applications for web soil survey. For instance, it can be used for farm modeling, like if you want to look at your yields and maybe like what the soil types are in different areas, like why there may be higher production in some areas than others. So I'm going to close this slideshow and I'm going to pull up web soil survey. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see my screen right here. So I just simply typed in web soil survey here in Google. And then I'm going to go to the home page and then just press start web soil survey. And I'm going to start a new session. So let's see, I could go ahead and search in our address. So this is just our office address. Oops. Okay, so here's our office building, in case you were wondering. So like I said, this is very user-friendly, so I can define my own area of interest. So I could create whatever polygon size that I want to. Let's see, or I can also just simply, create a rectangle and it will create my AOI. So then it will output a soil map for that area of interest. So I'm going to clear my area of interest right now, and I'm actually going to import one from a zip shapefile. So I'm just going to do this. My AOI. Okay, so that is the area that we are interested in looking at. So I can go over to the soil map tool right here, and it will break down each of the soil types and their limits within our AOI. So then over here, it will give out the acres, and then the percentage of AOI that it makes up. Okay, and then that will, sum to your total area. So we also have these other tabs on here. And like I said, this is a required SLIP component now. So I know OEPA, they require that a soil map is provided. So usually that will just be added to the like site map appendix. So you can just throw it in there. So I'm going to go to Soil Data Explorer, and there's other information that we can get. So I can click on soil health, and there's all these other variables. I'm going to go to water management. I can look at drainage, properties, and then just click on view rating. And then we'll just give you some more information. And this can be added to your soil report simply by clicking add to shopping cart right there. And this is a free tool, and it will give you information for the entire US. So this isn't just specific to Warren County. Let's see, so we can look at some other properties as well. So land classifications, there's soil moisture class, you can view rating, and then look at the descriptions to give us some more information. And I can also go over to soil properties and qualities. Look at my erosion factors. So for instance, if I want to figure out what the K factors are or some of my other erosion factors, I can do that. And then I can just simply go to add to shopping cart and press OK. I can download my soils data, or I can just produce the report by going to the shopping cart and then going to checkout. Press OK. And then here is my soils report. Does anyone have any questions so far on web soil survey? Okay, well, I'm going to stop sharing. And now I'm going to introduce Margaret Minzner. So Margaret is the Senior Environmental Planner over at OKI. She is responsible for managing the Green Space program, including coordinating the consultation process and implementing the OKI strategic regional policy plan recommendations for conserving natural systems and integrating green space into the development process. Margaret holds a doctorate in education leadership from Northern Kentucky University, a master's degree in integrative studies from Northern Kentucky University, and a bachelor's of arts degree in biology from Skidmore College. She is also a certified geographic information systems professional.
Hi there, Veronica. Thank you so much for the introduction, and thanks for having me today. I'm really happy to get this opportunity to share the work that we've been doing, and and hopefully you'll be just as excited to use this in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and can everybody see everything okay here?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. So this is from our Maps and Apps page. So if you go to Maps and Apps on the OKI website, you can see that I have a whole series here on the environmental mitigation and suitability modeler. And I kind of jumped into that, but I just want to give you some context of where you are as I'm getting started. So I wanted to let you know that everything that I present today is all available online through our story maps, and also through, through some videos, and you can reach it all from the Maps and Apps tab that I just showed you. So I just wanted to make sure you all were aware of this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share my first story map here. To give you an overview of this project and where we came, how we came to be with this. So really what I'm here to talk to you about is our environmental mitigation and suitability modeler. And this modeler allows users to take GIS layers, and what you do is you take the GIS layers, you add them to the map, and then you're able to weight those layers and have an analysis done for you on the fly on the web app, and give you some results to help you better understand your area. This is something that has come to, we've talked about this a lot through our SRPP, which is our Strategic Regional Policy Plan, understanding natural systems and what we need to do to help with support natural systems and green space in the region has been something that we have focused on. We maintain a green space map for the region, where we compile all of the green space that we hear of and have it displayed for people. And it helps the Green Umbrella when they're trying to come up with their metrics on how much green space has been grown. But we wanted to take that one step further and try to help people plan for green space and what they can do, and how to prioritize areas of interest. One of the things that we had done in the past was we put a bunch of layers on a map, and people could toggle on and off, in and out of an area, toggle on and off layers, and see that in what was called the Natural Resources Viewer. But that wasn't doing any analysis for people. So we wanted to say, okay, let's move this one step up. And part of the context of this is because of our role in with green space and transportation. So one of the things that we need to be aware of, it's a federal highway requirement from Safety Lou, was that we have to make sure that we plan for, as a region, what the mitigation requirements will be in the OKI region as it relates to transportation. Well, the thing is that transportation for environmental mitigation, it's about 80% of all the mitigation that happens as a result of transportation projects in the nation. And that's because, the linear development of transportation systems really has a large impact on on green space in the region. So at OKI, we've taken this seriously, and we were early adopters of the federal highway program called Ecological, and really looking at advanced mitigation and helping people understand where there's going to be environmental mitigation issues relating to proposed projects, and also where might be good mitigation opportunities. So one of the things that came out every year, or every 4 years, we update our long-range transportation plan. And those of you who are familiar with OKI, we are a federal pass-through for local transportation dollars. So probably, somewhere in the ballpark of like $30 to $40 million a year go through our organization, and we allocate the funds for the local transportation projects based on communities applying for grants, and we evaluate the grants on how well they measure up to our long-range transportation plan. So we can't just allocate the funds because we like this project or this community. It's allocated based on how much it's aligned with our strategic plan. And so we update this plan every 4 years. And every 4 years, we have what we call environmental consultations, where we meet with environmental experts and we get a better understanding of the pulse in the region, what's going on, what's important, what do we need to consider. And then we follow that up with those same people by showing them the projects in our 2050 planning horizon that are being considered. And we ask those environmental experts to weigh in on where, you know, are there any significant environmental concerns with those projects. So we do all of that, and you know, and we update our plan. Well, our last update occurred in 2020, and it was finalized March 6th of 2020, which was really lucky for me to have that right before COVID hit. But one of the things that came to light was that we needed to discuss really helping support environmental mitigation in the region and finding environmental mitigation projects in the region. And why is that? Part of the reason is, and I'm going to jump a little bit around here, is because of environmental mitigation service areas. So if you look at this map here, you can see the polygons that are multicolored represent environmental mitigation service areas. So when an impact happens in a region, the environmental impact to offset, or environmental mitigation to offset that impact, has to occur within the same service area. Now in Ohio, those service areas are largely aligned with watersheds. And so it's not as, you know, it makes a little more sense. But when you look in like Indiana and Kentucky, you can see the service areas are quite large. And part of the concern is that if there is a impact that occurs in the OKI region, which is the Burgundy outline, the resulting environmental mitigation could happen quite far away. And our board members were concerned that how do we keep environmental mitigation in the OKI region versus providing opportunities for people to, you know, they develop it, you know, if people are developing in OKI region, but then the mitigation dollars are going outside the region. So how do we keep the mitigation dollars inside the region? So we did this, you know, this project. And so this is kind of where the project all came to light, is because we wanted to see how to do this. And I basically had to take a deep dive into mitigation and what that entails, and had a lot of discussion of, you know, how are these projects found, and how do you find mitigation projects, to understand how we can support keeping mitigation projects in the region. So for those of you who maybe aren't familiar with environmental mitigation, when there is that impact is determined and the mitigation the resulting mitigation occurs through, there's three avenues. There is the mitigation bank, and we really don't have any mitigation banks in our region where there's actual credits where somebody could purchase. But for the development, for the project that's happening, if there was a mitigation bank, you would basically go to the bank, find out how much mitigation credits you need, and you would buy those credits, and the mitigation bank has already done the environmental mitigation, and they're selling the credits after the fact. Well, an in lieu fee program, and that's through, in Ohio, in the Nature Conservancy, and in Kentucky, it's done through Northern Kentucky and through Kentucky Fish and Wildlife. The in lieu fee programs, they basically are able to front the project. So they have to be a nonprofit, and they come in and they, if you need your credits, you are able to purchase your credits through them, and they go ahead and do the project after the fact. So they get an advance on those credits, but they are they have to be a natural resources based local agency. And then permittee responsible mitigation, that's when the group that is doing the actual project themselves take on the responsibility for the mitigation. A lot of times this happens with big box stores. They will take on the mitigation themselves. They usually have more resources to kind of do a project like that. There's more information available through Ribbits. That is the regulatory in lieu and banking tracking system, and that's through the Army Corps of Engineers. So U.S. Army Corps of Engineers manages the mitigation with the EPA, but they do have this website that shows where all the credits are, and you know, and where the projects are. So that's basically like a year's worth of overview on mitigation in like a 5-minute jaunt. So I don't want to go too much into it, but if anybody has any questions or wants to learn more about it, I'm happy to help share any knowledge I have. But long story short, we want to help people who are either through the mitigation banks, the in lieu fee programs, or permittee responsible mitigation, find projects in the OKI region versus being, forced to go outside of the region for mitigation. So what I did is I worked with a lot of partnering agencies to get information from them on what did they need to make a decision on what would be a good mitigation site. And so these are some of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers with the in lieu fee program providers. I also worked with local partners, Cardinal Land Conservancy, Cincinnati Nature Center, building industry in Northern Kentucky, folks from Boone County, Sanitation District 1, Green Umbrella. I worked with state partners, Ohio EPA, IDEM, ODOT, Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, but I also have them listed in the in lieu fee program. So I basically asked, like, what do we need to put in this map? And from there, I got an answer of, you need to put a whole lot of things in the map. And so we actually have 21 layers in this model. It includes parcels with a half-mile of stream, our natural heritage data, which we get from all 3 states and compile it in a way where it is and aggregated into one square mile blocks. Parks and protected areas, forested areas, steep slope mitigation projects. Those are all layers that we at OKI created. We also put in some state layers, such as the conservation opportunity areas and state conserved areas and significant streams. We used USDA NRCS layers, prime farmland, hydric soils. We used the EPA EJ screen layers. We also used wetlands, flood, impaired stream. And then we added some Nature Conservancy resilient land mapping layers, such as the climate connectivity, recognized biodiversity, and resiliency layers. So these are all layers that are included in the model. So what we did with this model is we created what's called a weighted raster overlay. And what that is we took a raster layer for each of those 21 layers. We made sure they were all in the same extent and the same cell size. And then we prepared them all for what we call a suitability modeler. And this will make a little more sense when I demo it. But this is kind of some of the work that we did to prepare the weighted raster overlay. And what we did after that was we published it online using ArcGIS Online, and we ended up with a weighted raster overlay a URL that we were able to plug into the ArcGIS Online web app builder. That's a lot of words, but as soon as I show it to you, I think you'll be a little more excited about it. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what we did. And I'm just going to go ahead and show you a live demo versus versus my video. If I can launch the modeler app. So this is the modeler. And, you know, it has your standard features here. There is information. This is a link to the story map, and as well as some another story map that has some more how-tos on how to use the modeler. These are all the layers that are included in the model, and this is just for visualization purposes. So if you wanted to see what you were looking at, that's the climate connectivity, flood data. You could look at any of this information. Then I put in a series of boundary layers to help for some of the analysis. So you have in Cincinnati, you have the community council boundaries, you have jurisdictions. This would include county and townships and municipality boundaries. I've got HUC 12s on here if you were interested in doing analysis by HUC 12. I have county boundaries. And then I have the mitigation service areas. And then these are just the raster layers for visualization, such as slope, 20% or greater slope, and then tree canopy cover. This has information on each of the layers and where they came up. So it's a little bit of a light metadata on these different layers. So you can look where they came from. There's, in some cases, there's some links to the data set. And I find that this helps to keep this open as I'm trying to decide what layers I want to put in my model. And then this gives me the tools if I want to add my own shapefile. So if I had a shapefile that was zipped up and I wanted to add, I could add that. So if I had like proposed properties that I was considering and I wanted to evaluate them, I could add those in through a shapefile, a KML, GPX, like, various methods. I could also add a URL from if I had anything like published, or I could look for data if on my organization or other data that might be in ARC Online. I also have the ability to print copies of this map if I wanted to after I do my analysis. I don't know that you want to do it without that. But so anyway, I'm going to go ahead and show you like there's standard tools here. You can zoom in and out, web map viewer, measurements, find your location. You can change your base map. But the important thing that you're here for and what makes this tool special is that you have the ability to run your model. So I'm going to run an example where I'm just looking for a potential area for mitigation. This model, I'm going to look for areas. I'm interested in a stream mitigation. So I'm looking at maybe some hydric soils. I'm looking at forest canopy height. I'm looking for impaired. Let me see. I'm going to look for impaired waters. I'm going to look at parcels with stream and proximity to mitigation, other mitigation projects. So then I design my model. I don't know if this is going to show much of anything, but I'll run this and see what it looks like. And if I don't like it, then I'll run some others and tweak it a little bit. But I'm just throwing out numbers just because. So I'm going to look in this model for areas where there is, I'm not as interested in areas that have a lot of high canopy. So I'm just going to run this so that it's low. It's seeking out areas of low canopy hydric soil. This is going to be a more important layer for me. And I'm going to say that I'm not so interested, but I am interested in if it has any type of hydric. And then impaired, I'm going to give that. I'm more interested in impaired waters because I'm looking for something to restore. Parcels with stream, I'm going to give this a give it a 30. Like I said, I'm just putting in I'm just putting these in arbitrarily. They're just numbers I'm throwing out there. There's no magic to what I'm doing right now other than trying to make it equal 100. And then proximity to existing mitigation projects. So parcels with stream, this is either looking at parcels that have at least a half mile of stream in them. And then proximity to mitigation projects. I'm going to be more interested in projects that are closer to existing mitigation projects. And I have to make sure that this all equals 100, and then I can run my model. And is it going to work for me here? It is running, and now I can see high areas that are red that kind of show me where I might focus on for a project. So if I wanted to see like how that relates to my boundary on my counties, I could do that. And so like within Warren County, I can see where these red areas would be most like where my model is. So from there, I have the ability to do some charting functions. So I can draw a polygon. And it'll show me information about what percentage of that polygon is very high, high, low. One of the cool things I can also do with that is if I wanted to, look at like relative to a county's or any of those layers that I added, I can do it based on, so I drop down to that layer, and then I'll move this out of the way so I can see it, and say I wanted to see like how much of Warren County meets certain criteria. It's taking a second, I'm sorry. It's like, so then it gives me an idea of, so so high to very high. So I have like maybe 4%. And if I wanted to say I wanted to compare that to Butler County, I could see what that looks like. So, so I could do a comparison, based on townships or municipalities, or I could add my own like potential site selections and take a look at that. So, and like I said, you can also add your, if you wanted to see what's underneath, and then you can come over and change your view, add a transparency. So if you wanted to see a little bit of what's underneath. So the cool thing about this model is it's adaptable. And so, we can adapt it to different uses without, without really being prescriptive in what we're saying. So if you were looking for stream mitigation, you could like select features that are most likely, would help you with that. If you were doing a wetland mitigation, you could select factors that would help you with that. Another example that people have used this is Taking Root used this to decide where to focus on their next tree planting. So they were looking for low canopy height, and then comparing it to some EJ factors, such as low income population and respiratory health index, so that they were able to focus on where the areas that could most benefit from a tree planting program. Boone County Conservation District, they used it for, they were doing bat studies, and they wanted to focus on which areas would be most important for them, or where they would expect to see bats in their sites. So they found the red areas based on their own unique criteria, and then found where there were roads and those were accessible and they could get to those sites. So let me see if I have. So like this is an example of what Boone County was doing and finding they're using the model for their sites. And then this is an example of what Taking Root was doing to find areas that were high for their tree planting program. So those are just, those are two of the examples that we have so far. We actually, this was used for trying to narrow down sites for a 200-acre mitigation project in northern Kentucky. And, and we're hoping that this will be used by not just people looking for mitigation, but also people looking for, looking to plan for areas with significant environmental resources, being able to see where there might be areas to focus on for conservation as well. So I'm sorry, my screen share is like blocking the view of let me see if I can. I saved all my tabs open, but then my screen share is making it difficult. So just to kind of give you some of the back, like how this modeler works. It does do this, it's called a weighted raster overlay, and it compares the rasters from all these different layers and then puts them on top of each other and then calculates based on those weights that you gave that I showed you where the highest need is, or where it is the most representative of your area. Like I said, this has step-by-step instructions of the different things that you can do for this modeler. Again, how you design your model, and you have to make sure that this equals 100. And then putting in weighting all your features. And then sharing the model. You do have an ability to export this and bring it into your own ArcMap project if you want. And that pretty much in a nutshell is this. I'd like to, if anybody has any numbers or values that you'd like me to run a model for, I'd be happy to go ahead and try it out for you. Otherwise, I can just go ahead and start adding some different models. I don't know if anyone wants to put anything into the chat box and any values, and I can try to run the model. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and run a couple more because we got a little more time, and that'll help you, familiarize yourself with this tool. So I'm going to run this as if I'm somebody looking for acquiring new green space. So I'm interested in this model. I'm going to look for areas that have a high canopy height. I'm going to look for areas with natural heritage data in close proximity. And I'm going to look for areas that are close to existing parks and protected areas and that have recognized biodiversity. So I'm going to go ahead and design my model. And for this model, I'm going to go ahead and give everything just a 25 because I think all these relative to each other are equally as important to me in this example. For the forest canopy height, I'm most interested in areas with high canopy and less interested in low. So I can just leave those default values as they are. For the natural heritage data, I am most interested in the areas that have at least one species, endangered threatened species in a square mile. And I'm just going to say that if it has 4 or more, it's going to be more, I'm going to weight it even higher. One thing I want to note on this is that I'm actually going to put this as a 1 for the 0 as opposed to a 0, because if I put a 0 in here, that creates donut holes in my model. And I really don't like the way that looks. But if you want to eliminate something altogether, you can do that. Proximity to parks and protected areas. in this model, I am not interested in areas that are already protected because I'm looking to acquire new areas. But the closer it is to something that's already protected is going to be important. So I'm going to go put the less than 1/10 of a mile away is 9. And then I'm just going to go ahead and make these all. And then as I get to be a 1/2 mile away, I'm going to, or greater than a mile away, I'm going to weight that lower. And then recognize biodiversity. I am more interested in areas that have the recognized biodiversity than not. So then I'll run my model. And look, little Miami, but you know, so here this is an area that kind of shows you where there's, you know, where you have the most areas on that model right now. Now, if I wanted to go ahead and put donut holes in my areas that are already protected, I could move that to a 0. I can run the model and you can see these are the areas that are close to areas already protected, but still meet criteria for that model that I just created. So I'll go ahead and clear this model. I still have a little bit of time here, so I'm just going to go ahead and run. I'll run another model. This one will be one that I'll do the tree canopy tree planting model where I'm looking for low tree canopy, and I'm going to look for low income populations with respiratory index above 1 standard deviation and traffic exposure beyond above 1 standard deviation. So I'm going to put the forest canopy height at 50, and I'm going to run these two as 25. Oh, wait a second, I have 4 in here. Wait. Low income 25. And I'm going to do the inverse because I'm looking for an area to focus on planting. And like I said, I'm just putting kind of arbitrary numbers in here just to run it. And up, I'm not 100, so I'm going to have to make this 100. So let's just do this 18. Now I'm 100, and then I'll run my model. And this shows me the areas that are high, that could be of highest need in that model. So at this point in time, I'd like to see if there's any questions about what you know about what you learned or what you've seen today on this, or if anybody has any other models that they would like to see me run. I'm looking at the chat box if anyone has anything for in there.
I do have a question here. I'm kind of been trying to play along on my own computer. I'm zoomed in tighter than what you probably had on your screen. And I just wanted to know, once you run your model, it seems like I've kind of lost the background image. So I see a bunch of colors on there. Is there a way to fade the transparency of the model?
Yeah, absolutely. You can change the transparency on here. And what you do is if you go in where you see your layer list, and then you scroll down, and I'm sorry that there's so many different layers here, but in this version of Arc Online, they didn't let you group the layers. And that's something that we'll be fixing in the next round because, you know, I mean, once you get something done, you end up fixing it. But if you go down to the end where it says REST Suitability WRO,
yeah, and
then click on the 3 dots there, and it has the transparency.
Gotcha.
And then you can add a transparency on it as much or as little as you want.
Do I hit run again, or is it automatically?
No, you could just, if you just hit the transparency on there, it should be fine.
Okay.
And then you just put whatever, like right here, I've got this is about 75.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so since we've started this map, you know, we have had some people already starting to use it. We pushed this out and it became available and on our website in October, mid-October. And so since then, we've been trying to get it out there to people, you know, have people really play with the tools, see what they think. You know, we're in that stage where, you know, we're seeking input because, you know, as we update layers and as people start to use the tool, you start to learn what else needs to happen. You know, I mean, you know, when you spend a lot of time interviewing with people and trying to see what they need, and you get that information, and then once people start using it, you realize they need other things too. And so we're already at that point where we're starting to talk about, are there other layers that need to be included in the model? Are there different features that we need to add, you know, to help people make the decisions that they make? Again, like this is, you know, this is designed to be a planning tool that can help with, you know, it can help with comprehensive planning. It could help with, you know, it could help with finding mitigation projects. It could help with identifying potential red flags. It could, you know, or where you know, where you would expect to have a lot of mitigation issues. You know, it can help with multiple different factors. You know, and we even had, like I said, people who were using it for tree planting or helping for site selection. So, I mean, it has different uses. And if we find that there's other things that we need to do to make it useful for other people as well, you know, we're definitely open to that. We wanted to make sure that it was a tool that folks in the development community are aware of and able to access. Because it's not just a tool solely for conservation purposes. Even though it has that application, it can also help to find where the mitigation could be, or to identify where you might have some added expenses with mitigation. So are there any other questions for people that people have with this?
The only question I had was that when you export your data, are you exporting it? Is it a raster, or like what's the file type?
It gets exported as a raster. So it is a raster that saves on your ArcGIS Online account. So you have to have ArcGIS Online, you have to export it as a raster, but then from there you can download it to your Arc Online. You know, you can download it and then you export it locally if you wanted to create a local copy.
Okay, great. Well,
And one thing I do want to note that brought it up to me is that if you are saving, like if you're making multiple scenarios and creating multiple models, each time you create a scenario and we're exporting that, you would want to retain these values. So you would want to retain your percentages, as well as your the weights that you put on each feature. Because if you don't, once you hit clear, everything turns to 0 and you wouldn't have that. So you could export the WRO, but then you want to make sure that you keep those values so that if you need to recreate it, you can.
great. Well, does anyone else have any more questions for Margaret? Okay, well,
All right.
thank you all so much for hopping on our first reemergence of the urban chats, and I look forward to our next urban chat. So hope everyone has a great week, and yeah, feel free to contact Margaret if you have any questions on the environmental viewer tool or reach out to me if you have any suggestions for our next urban chat.